To win the International 6 Days Trial is a great achievement. To have won it 4 times in succession is a far greater achievement. And to have won it 15 times out of 26 is an historical fact of which the Autocycle Union may be very, very proud. That is Britain's record. For the 1951 event, the headquarters was at Varese, a small town in northern Italy with Lake Maggiore to the west and Lake Como to the east. Here, in September, over 200 riders from 10 nations, from Austria, from Belgium, Great Britain, Ireland, Italy, Germany, Holland, Spain, Switzerland and Sweden, gathered to put themselves and their machines to a 1,200-mile test. Primarily, the International 6 Days Trial is a team event. The principal awards are the International Trophy for national teams of 5 riders and the International Vase for national teams of 3. It is the coveted International Trophy that Great Britain, after her win in 1951, had captured no fewer than 15 times since the first trial in 1913. Each day, riders spend many hours in the saddle. They have to maintain average speed so calculated in relation to the roads and tracks that only the most skillful riders on the finest machines can expect to get through without being late at the time checks and so losing marks. These scenes give some idea of the area in which the daily routes are plotted, an area of mountains and lakes, of twisty roads and narrow, wriggling, loose-surface tracks, an area of breathtaking scenery to delight the tourist and the cameraman, but not for competitors with an arduous 6 days before them. During the 2 days before the start is the time for finishing touches to machines. Riders fuss over their precious models like hens over their broods. Nuts are given a final tighten. Adjustments are checked and checked again. Number plates are bolted in place and the numbers sprayed on. There is a happy, lazy informality about the goings-on in contrast to the seriousness that is to follow. Factory representatives from England have come to Varese with their service lorries and supplies. In very quick time, a set of brakes can be relined. Indeed, this mobile workshop for fixing brakes also had other equipment and was the official service station for the teams. Anything from power drilling to turning on a lathe could be done without delay. Or a magneto could be given a bench test and repaired if necessary. Chains, tires, sparking plugs and other supplies are to be had for the asking. Above all, the factory experts are there to give advice and guidance. All riders make use of service provided by the oil companies. In a matter of seconds, an oil tank could be sucked dry by means of powerful, specially made syringes with very long nozzles. By the way, oil in Italy was a trifle expensive, a mere £2 or so a gallon. In place of the old oil goes new, clean oil of the right grade, beautiful oil that looks wholesome enough to drink. Then comes the weighing in. Every machine is inspected by officials and is then impounded. Main components: chassis, hubs, front forks, frames, tanks, wheels, carburetors, engines, gearboxes and magnetos are marked by means of special paint on which riding numbers are outlined. Cylinder heads are wired to cylinder barrels and the barrels to crankcases. These precautions are to make sure that the original components are retained and that engines are not dismantled during the 6 days. Riders will not be allowed near their machines until a quarter of an hour before they are due to start on the first morning. 6 a.m., September 18, 1951. The 26th International 6 Days Trial starts. In the near darkness of dawn it is cool, almost chilly, but half an hour later the sun is up as F.H. Whittle is ready to go. Whittle is a famous driver of Panther sidecar outfits. He is an old stager with many, many years of trials experience, and he looks to have less of the first morning jitters than do most of the riders. Why jitters? Well, engines must be got going with the kickstarter and machines driven off within 3 minutes of the signal. Failure means a 1-mark penalty. Even 1 mark loss can make the difference in the team contest and, in any case, relegates the rider out of the gold medal category. Of course, engines should start in a few seconds. But it is so easy in the distractions and excitements of the occasion to forget the elementary rules, to forget to turn on the petrol or to be too liberal with carburetor flooding. Riders start in pairs at 1-minute intervals. On the starting line is Bob Ray, the popular aerial rider and member of the British Trophy team, one of the 5 stalwarts who will carry the responsibility of Britain's prestige for the coming 6 days. Another trophy team man, Jimmy Alves, with his Triumph twin. Like Bob Ray, Alves has been in the British 6 days teams before, and he knows the task that lies ahead. Here are more famous British riders: Ted Breffett, Norton Mounted, and a British team reserve. Bert Gamer, Triumph of the British A team for the Vars. Glenn Heath, manager of the British teams, is on the right. Tom Ellis, Vars B team, and on the right is Jack Stocker of the British Trophy team. Trophy team expert Hugh Viney on his twin-cylinder AJS. British B Vars team man, Dick Clayton on a Norton Dominator. This is Don Evans of the British Vars A team. Evans is mounted on an aerial twin. Significantly, perhaps, all 11 riders in the British Trophy and 2 Vars teams are mounted on twin-cylinder models, and all machines are of 500cc or 650cc capacity, in contrast to other nations' teams on small machines. Whenever the course passes through a village or a town, large crowds of curious and enthusiastic spectators line the streets to watch and cheer. This is Gallerati. The police cooperate and normal traffic takes second place. Marshals signal to each other so that, should there be a mishap, following riders can be warned in good time. This loose, rough stuff near San Antonio is typical of long sections of each day's route. Miles and miles of this sort of going have to be covered. No average motorcyclist would have trouble in negotiating these tracks in his own time. The difficulty arises because the time schedule means that riders must be kept going almost as fast as they dare. Moreover, trophy, Vars and manufacturers' teams have to ride about 10% faster than other competitors. These teamsters might even be accused of sometimes riding a bit quicker than they dare. Now, who would this be? He's on an Norton twin. He's P.K. Baldwin. Yes, he slides a bit, but he looks quite unperturbed. Let us stay here for a while. Perhaps there will be a spot of fun. Here's the next man, Chick Gibson, all the way from Dublin and mounted on a Royal Enfield Bullet. He's a member of the team representing Ireland in the Vars contest. This is it. This is what we rather expected. Just a weeny bit too quick for the surface, Mr. Mazzola from Switzerland. First man in this group is Siegfried Simrel on a Puck. Second, Pierre Stasser on an AJS, and then an Italian Vespa rider. There were about a dozen of these remarkable Vespa scooters in the entry list. You might think they are not quite the thing for an arduous long-distance event, but they put up an astonishingly good show. The blue flag warns riders that a furlong farther up the road there will be a route check where cards have to be stamped by the officials. These checks ensure that riders do not bypass any section of the course. If a rider finishes the day's route and his card is incomplete, then he is likely to be excluded from the trial. And if he loses his card, he has to pay a heavy fine, unless he can argue his way out of it, of course. Believe me, it's worth going miles to hear a couple of Latins on that sort of argument. This is the famous town of Stresa. As ever, the crowds turned out in force when the trial passed through on the second day. Earlier we said that local traffic takes second place, but not always. Ping, there wasn't much space between that Swedish rider and the tram. Stresa is, of course, a popular centre for visitors to the Italian lakes, and Lake Maggiore forms the background to some of these scenes. This well-made road alongside the lake gives a chance to motor briskly and perhaps to get ahead of the time schedule. If riders have ideas about admiring the beautiful scenery, they have to forget them. There's little time for anything but watching the road, listening to the healthy beat of the engine, and keeping an eye on speed in relation to the time allowed. Occasionally, a rider is forced to stop, or if, on an easy section such as this, he has time in hand, he will take the opportunity of stopping to make a small adjustment or, say, swap a plug. This Italian competitor, Giovanni Broggi, pauses for a minute or two. At first he dithered, but apparently the only reason for his stop was to change a plug. In fact, along this section of good road, nearly all riders found they had plenty of time. In the relative sense, that is. Anyway, friend Broggi was in no great hurry to get on the move again. This is a time check, the one near Bellagio on Lake Como. These checks not only ensure that riders keep to the route, but also to their scheduled speeds. Competitors hand over their cards. These are inserted in the machine and automatically stamped with the time. If a rider gets there early, he waits till his scheduled time comes up. If he is late by more than 3 minutes, then he loses a mark for every additional minute. No very high mountain passes were included in the 1951 event, but the course frequently took riders to heights above 3,000 feet. Here on the Tivano Pass, the road is some 3,500 feet up, has a loose, treacherous surface, and if a mistake is made, there is a chance that the rider will find himself heading smartly down the mountainside. In the dry weather, dust was often a nuisance. These are the sort of sections where the trial is won or lost. If a rider has a fall or has a stop for any other reason, there's precious little opportunity of making up the time. There were plenty of S-bends like these, and there was always the chance of meeting the odd coach or lorry just at an inconvenient moment. With a wheelbase short enough to get round these bends, this coach must surely be a comp job. This chap swings the bends in nice style on his BSA Gold Star. He's an Englishman, Edward Dow, and the next man is on a BSA twin, Geoffrey Barker, also from England. As you see, riders are no longer in numerical order. Different classes of machine have different time schedules, and so, as the route is covered, the larger machines overhaul the smaller. The little chaps started first each morning and finished near the end of the cavalcade. On most days, these riders spent nearly 12 hours a wheel. Yes, the sun shines brilliantly. The weather was kind throughout the week after stormy days before the start. If the weather had been bad, some sections of the course might have been a far tougher proposition. It is almost impossible to plan routes which will provide the same test irrespective of weather. Along each day's route, mobile replenishment depots are set up where riders' tanks are filled with petrol and oil. There is no time allowance for filling, so no time is wasted. Number 195 is the dashing Nottinghamshire rider Ted Breffett on a Norton twin with the featherbed racing type frame. Breffett doesn't seem to be in any particular hurry, but then Ted always presses on, and it's a safe bet that he will be as early in the queue as anyone. Here's another Ted Usher on his matchless twin. He was a member of the British B Vars team, and he completed the 6 days without losing any marks. This competitor is George Meyer, the famous German rider who won the senior TT in 1939. Although now over 40, he is still the top road racing man in Germany. With him is another German racing star, Walter Seeler. Aerial sidecar exponent known to all who follow British sporting trials, Frank Wilkins. And his attractive passenger, Kay. But of course, there's always a moment to fix a pretty face. This rider is in the Austrian trophy team, Siegfried Simmerl riding a 150cc two-stroke Puch. Have you ever struck snags when changing a tyre or repairing a puncture? Riders in the International practice tyre changing until they can do it in a few minutes. This is George Buck, the sidecar driver, fitting a new cover during time in hand near a check. Driver and passenger work deftly as a team and waste no time, although they may not seem to be hurrying. Methodical, unflurried maintenance is the secret. That's why these riders have time to take it easy for a few minutes before getting their cards stamped. This is young Les Archer, who rode in the British Army team. Can you imagine a better way of doing a national service? Once their time is up, riders are in quite a panic to get their cards stamped and to be off. To them, the officials seem to work terribly slowly, placing the cards carefully in the clock and then checking the recording. They ought to take a few tips from the factory lads at knocking off time. Stamped cards are tucked away and then riders press on. They save seconds where they can. Who knows what time-wasting hazards or mishaps may be encountered up the road. This particular section gives an idea of what might have happened if there had been a few days' rain. Imagine this unmade track, rather like a farm track, during winter time in England. It would have been muddy and rutted enough to rank as a section in a sporting trial. As it was, with the dry weather, competitors took it fairly fast. The young lady riding neatly on an Italian Perilla is Miss Olga Kevelos. She took a toss on the 5th day, but until then she had not lost a single mark. The solo overhauling the sidecar outfit is a 125cc Mondial ridden by the Italian De Maestri. The Mondial factory produced the world's champion 125cc road racing machines in 1949, 50 and 51. They've been unbeatable, in fact. A German, George Weiss, is driving the fast-moving sidecar outfit. It's a 750cc horizontally opposed twin Zundap. Here's another German rider, A. Lutart, on a TWN, otherwise the German Triumph. This little village is Zelbio, and you can see by the cautious way riders go that the main street is not only narrow and winding, but has also got a pretty poor surface. Zelbio is like many another Italian village on the route. the sort of place where one would stop and take a few photographs. But its tricky, badly surfaced streets are a bind to a rider in a hurry, and most of them were after the miles of dusty, second-rate tracks earlier in the day's route. Monza Autodrome near Milan. After about 1,200 arduous miles on roads and tracks comes the final test. Every rider must circle the autodrome for an hour and cover a specified distance in that time. For example, a 125cc machine must do 43 miles in an hour, a 500cc sidecar nearly 55 miles, a 350 solo 62.5, a 500 solo 66.5 miles. These speeds for an hour can take a bit of making if a machine is sick after its pounding during the 6 days. Of the 220 competitors who started in the trial 6 days earlier, about 150 arrived at the autodrome for the speed test. The British team was leading in the trophy contest, and providing all 5 riders covered the mileage in the time, the British team would win. But in the bars contest there would be a thrilling struggle. The British A team and the Dutch B team were tying with no marks lost. Hence the winning team would be the one which improved by the greatest margin on the set time. It was going to be a race. There goes a group of riders in the larger capacity classes. The Autodrome, completed about 3 years ago, is a luxurious racing centre with magnificent facilities for competitors and spectators. Italians are keen followers of car and motorcycle racing at Monza. Crowds of 250,000 will turn out for a meeting such as the Grand Prix des Nations, which was held a fortnight before this international speed test. Here we have the Verdano curve, which is really 2 right-angled corners close together. Down the straight is the grandstand and the finish of the lap. The 4-mile circuit is very fast indeed, and 500cc racing machines can lap it at nearly 110 miles an hour. The riders have settled down into little groups, and the sensible ones are not trying to play racers. They are lapping only slightly faster than the speed required by the regulations. The magnificent Vespers. A dozen started, and these in the long line are still going well. 9 of them got through without losing marks and were awarded gold medals. Who said scooters were suitable only for doing the local shopping? No serious trouble, surely? No, only a plug change. He carried on and, we learned later, won his gold medal. The machine, by the way, is a 150cc giorni. Congratulations! The Netherlanders have done it. Their supporters have been busy with watches and have calculated that the Dutch team on their 250cc Jawas have improved on set speeds by more than the British team on 500cc machines. They have won the silver bars. Good show, Hollanders. The riders are P. Harker on the right, C. Van Rysel, middle, and H. Veer on the left. Here are some of the British trophy team riders at speed. They have to cover 17 laps and average nearly 70 mph for the hour. This means speeds approaching 100 mph on the straights. There's a British signalling station where anxious hands are operating stopwatches. All goes well with the trophy team, and the aim is to keep the riders circling at the right speed, not too fast and not too slow. On they go, peeling off the laps in neat formation and pretty to watch as they swing the curves and corners. All 5 men have completed the distance. Again, Britain has won the principal award, the International Trophy. And as manager Len Heath toasts them, so do we. Hugh Viney, AJS. Jack Stocker, Royal Enfield. Bob Ray, Ariel. Jimmy Alves, Triumph.